This is Pat Kerwin for the Real Football Network, and it's time to talk about power rankings. Now, I did one in August, and I did one last week, and they were all speculative. Now we've got a week of football under our belt, and I feel for the first time more comfortable in trying to rank these teams 1 to 32. Four teams left the top 12, and four entered the top 12. Now, why is that important? Because I look at the power rankings as get to the top 12, get to a spot where I think you're a playoff team. And if you're not in there, work to get there. If you're in there and you fall out, crawl back in if you can. So, who is the top 10 and who fell out and who came in? Going into the top 10 this week in the Real Football Network is Buffalo, moving from spot 19 in the preseason to spot 8. San Diego, which was at 16, moved into spot number 9 as they get themselves in a position where I consider them playoff caliber based on 1 week of football. Kansas City, they were 21. I had them ranked way too low, and they moved to 10 with a very convincing performance by their quarterback and by that defense down there in Houston on the road. And then the big surprise, moving into the top 12, San Francisco. I had them 23rd in the National Football League off the camp tour and what I thought happened when all the offseason moves, and they've moved to 11. Well, to get 4 into the top 12, I had to take 4 out. Who's out? Big surprises. Indianapolis, I had them ranked 4th, and they're gone down to 13. Baltimore, out. All right, they were at 6, down to 14. Indianapolis to 13, 14 for Baltimore. Philadelphia had 11 in the preseason, down to 19 after what I saw in the Atlanta Falcon game. And Detroit, which was just inside the line at number 12, now down to 17. So, to repeat that, in the top 12 for the first time, Buffalo, San Diego, Kansas City, and San Francisco. And out of the top 12, at least for this week, we'll see how they do, Indianapolis, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Detroit. Now, you might ask me, where's Seattle? They were ranked number 2 going into the preseason. They got bumped down with that overtime loss, but not out of the top 12. Remind you that Seattle last year lost their opening game. They were 0-1. In fact, 3 of the final 4 teams went 0-1 last year. So treat it with a grain of salt. This is very volatile this time of year. The longer the season goes on, the more stable the power rankings are. So for a quick review of the top 10 in the National Football League Power Poll by me, Pat Kerwin, New England won after the performance I saw last Thursday night. Green Bay 2. Cincinnati way up to number 3. Very powerful team with a lot of depth, and I think they can stay in that area for most of the season. Denver, with that tremendous defensive effort, talked to Kubiak this week. Very happy with the defense. Not so sure about the offense. They got a question mark next to them, but they're holding the 4th spot. Number 5, Arizona. Did you see Carson Palmer? Do you see what he's doing with his weapons? Do you see how aggressive that defense is? Number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. That 2-minute drill by Tony Romo solidified to me, and they did it without Dez Bryant, that they're a top team. We'll see how they do this week in Philadelphia. Seattle comes in at number 7. As I said, they've lost before on opening day. They need to get Cam Chancellor back. But for now, they're just repairing the offensive line and trying to get themselves stabilized. Huge game in Green Bay this week against the number 2 team. Number 8, Buffalo. Between Rex Ryan's defensive scheme and what he gets out of Tyrod Taylor, this reminds me a lot of the 2 years he went to the championship game with Sanchez as his quarterback. Number 9, San Diego. Down 21-3, then they just turn on the fire. Phillip Rivers and all those receivers, and he did it without Antonio Gates. They could hang around for a while, and I was surprised late in the game that the defense could hold down the fort and do a nice job. Number 10, Kansas City. Now, this is a team that I got the arrow pointing up. I could see them moving up. They've got Denver on Thursday night, and they could blast themselves right into the 4 or 5 spot with a big win at home if they can. Number 11, San Francisco, surprise team. Jeep Chris, the new offensive coordinator, had been there as a quarterback coach. Great relationship with Kaepernick. I thought he already started to show us how he's going to open up things for Kaepernick, make his life simpler, play to his athletic skills. And number 12, and you might want to disagree with me, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only team in here with a loss. But I watched Ben Roethlisberger. I know what he's doing. He's getting Le'Veon Bell back in another week. He's getting Pouncey back as center sooner or later. And I think the problems on defense are very correctable. So I have him in the 12 spot. That's it for me on the power rankings. Pretty exciting time trying to get a picture of what's going on in the NFL. Oh, did I mention the bottom? Tampa Bay in 32. No argument from anybody on that. And then we have Oakland at 31 after the way they played at home. And then, of course, the Cleveland Browns, who now are probably going to go with Manziel. That's the bottom. You know the top. You know who's in the top 12. You know who's out. Pat Kerwin here for the Real Football Network on the Power Rankings.